Hello and welcome back. In this video, we'll be looking at conditionals conditionals. Now, there is a time in the creation of programs, right? Even in mathematics, where we would have to perform certain tasks based on a condition. Let's say, for instance, in optimization or in these search methods, if we are trying to minimize certain objective function, we try to perform some activities while probably the functional value at an x value is lesser than the other, and then we perform some tasks. So basically, in our numerical analysis, we would have to learn how to deal with conditionals, right? So in this video, we would look at that, but then we can't do conditionals without looking at the conditions, right? So how do we talk about a condition? What is the condition? So we would have to talk about the operators, the logical operators, and then the comparison operators as well. So let's just get started. So we open our terminal as usual, and then this one we call it conditionals dot. So we use Vim, our favorite text editor. Conditionals dot c, right? And then so here we quickly include, right? So by now I'm sure we all know how to do this. Standard inputs output dot h, that's the header, the library for, and then our int main function, right? But then I'm returning nothing, so void here. And yep, so here, so we want to talk about conditionals. Now, before then, we will first have to know what the comparison operators are, right? So we use double ampersand, right, for the end. So the AND operator. So this is for the end, right? The logical AND, and then we use the pipe. This for the logical OR, right? And then we use the double equal to for equal. So that's the equality you are trying to. So this is equality, right? Bear in mind, I told you if you use one equal to is for assignment. So this is for equality, to check whether one quantity is equal to the other. And then the single equal to is for assignment, right? So you want to assign, so assignment operator, right? So that's that. And then we have so you have the AND, the OR, and then not equal to, right? So if you bring the exclamation starts for the not, right? So if you decide to add it to, so let's say exclamation equal to is for what? Not equal to, right? So basically that's that. So now that we know how to use the or what the comparison operators are for, let's then dive deep into the conditions. Now, conditions are basically the same as it is, right? If it rains, I'll use an umbrella or I'll wear my cardigan, right? So you wearing your cardigan depends on the fact that it rains. So if it doesn't rain, obviously you can't wear a cardigan in the hot sun, obviously. So it means that you wearing a cardigan depends on the raining. So we want to also do that. Now the syntax for creating these statements are if. So you if, and then by now you should be getting used to this syntax, right? So you put your condition here, right? Certain condition, and then in here you put your statements, right? So the statement you want to run, should this condition be true, right? So basically that's that. So let's say if it rains, then this should happen. Do you understand? Okay, so now from here, so let's see if, so let's quickly build something. So let's declare that, let's say, enter a number, right? So print f, let's say enter a number, enter a number, right? Or let's say enter your mark. Let's do enter your mark, right? And then before then we would have to assign or declare a float, right? Variable called mark. And then after declaring a float variable called mark, we want to receive the input from the user, so scan f, right? And then we are taking what, a float, so we use percentage what, f, right? Sorry, percentage f or percent f, sorry. And then from here we want to assign it to the address, so you bring the address of operator and then address of what, mark, right? So we are receiving the input and we are storing it in the address for the mark variable, and then so that's that. Now the mark given, right? So if, right, so if the mark, right, our mark is what, greater than, do you get it? So we want to, if it is greater than, let's say 70, or yes, greater than or equal to 70, right, then we say something, right? So let's just use this, right? Let's say that you did well or you had excellence. So we print f, so print f, right? Should pay attention to the spelling here as well. So print f excellent or something, excellent, right? Excellent score, right? So basically this is what we want to happen. So we want the user to enter some mark, right? If the mark the user enters is greater than or equal to 70, it should say excellent score. An easy program, right? Or simple program. And then yes, we didn't talk about the greater than or equal to here, so I think I should add it, right? So let's talk about the greater than or equal to as well. We have the greater than, equal to, right? So this is for greater than or equal to, right? And then we have the less than or equal to, right? Or equal to, and then we have the strictly less than and then strictly greater than. So this is for strictly less than, right? And then I'll put the two together, and this for strictly greater than. So for strictly less than and what, strictly greater than respectively. So strictly greater than respectively, right? Anyways, so we have these ones as well. So if you want to combine these two comparisons, so the not equal to, the equal to, the greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, the greater than or less than, these ones are comparison operators, right? We use them to compare one item to the other, right? And then the and then the or, right, is for the not condition but then logic, so logical operators. So you can use them to combine two comparisons, right? So in logic, just like we did in logic and sets, so you do the same thing here as well. So the and then the or is for logic, and then we use the equal to, not equal to, greater than or equal to for comparison. So just keep that in mind. Now let's exit, compile our code. Right, we called it conditional, so we do gcc conditionals, and if you don't know conditionals .c, and then we want to output it as what? gcc conditionals.x, right? So yes, we don't have any error. So let's see whether when we run this code it will work. Conditionals.x, interesting. Enter a mark 70. Wow, it said excellent score. Interesting. So you have an excellent score here. It means that the logic works, right? I'm coming. Let's make it move to the next line. Okay. Now let's check this one. Let's recompile and then rerun. Now let's enter 40. Okay, let's enter maybe 100 as well. Excellent score. That's nice. Now, what happens if we enter, let's say, 50 or 40? What happens? So if I enter 40, nothing happens. So nothing returns. Interesting. But then wouldn't it be better if we can add the fact that once we enter the number 40, it should tell us that, or maybe once we enter a number between 60 and 70, or once we enter a number that is 60, right, it should return something, right? Or a number less than 70 it should return not excellent score. So to do that, right, we can include the the else statement, right? So we could include the else statement here, and then else, and then we bring our curly braces. So the else doesn't receive any parentheses, it just takes the curly braces like that, right? Else print what? Not excellent, right? So print not excellent. Obviously, if you don't get 70, it's not excellent. But that doesn't mean you've not done well, but so not excellent score. Right. So let's see whether this will work. So once we do this, once we recompile this and then rerun it and enter a mark 40, whoa, not excellent score is here. So it means that now it knows, right? Our program now knows that if the number is below 70, right, it should return not excellent score. Okay. But then, are there only two sides of life? Is it only excellent and not excellent? No. We have excellent, we have very good, and then we have good as well. Is that not it? So wouldn't it be nice if our program can just tell us if it is 70 and above, tells us excellent, right? But then if it is, let's say, 60 and above, or 60 to 70, it should tell us what? Very good, right? And then maybe 50 to 60 tells us good. Exactly. How do we make our program know this or know all these things? So we can do that by including the what? Else if, right? So before the else, we could add another condition here called the else if, right? So the else if, right? Now this else if, what it does is this. It also receives another condition and then executes another statement. So you could see that we put the conditions in parentheses and then the statements in curly braces, right? So for instance, so else if the mark is what? The mark is, let's say, greater than or equal to 60, right? What happens? So first it checks if the mark is greater than or equal to 70 and then prints excellent, right? If it's not, then it comes here, checks if the mark is what? Greater than or equal to 60, right? And then what should we do? So it should what? Print F So you could print F here of what? Print F, let's say, very good, right? Very good score. So that's for that, right? So now let's run this and see. And then, so it means that from this program, it checks if the mark is greater than or equal to 60 and then prints very good score. Else, then it prints not excellent, right? So let's see. So once we exit this, we save our work, go back here and then recompile. Whoa, we have this exactly. So we see that we separated the less than, the greater than, and then the equal to, which is shouldn't be so, right? So we make that effect, we save, we go back and recompile. But first, let's clear the screen, right? And then recompile. Now we don't have any error. And then let's run it and see. Enter a mark. So let's enter 65. Very good score, right? So 65 works. What if we enter, let's say 40? Whoa, not excellent score. What if 50, right? What if we enter 50? Oh, nothing happens. So it's still not excellent score, right? So it means that this app or this program only considers only 3 parts: excellent, very good, and then the rest is regarded as not excellent. But then we know that in our grading system, we also have something we call the good, right? That's probably below 60 and then 70, below 60 and then above 50, right? So that's between 60 and 50, right? So we could still do that or add that side by including another else if statement, right? So you can still do that by adding another else if statement. Else if, right? Our mark is what's greater than or equal to what? So this time around we want 50, right? And then what happens? So it prints F, right? And then that's what? This we should say good score, right? Good score. And then can put our \n here. Let's do the same thing here as well. \n, so it prints to a new line. Bear in mind, I'm just writing this on one line. You can decide to give a space between them, bring this side here to the next line, but then I just want, since the program is not any complicated one, right? In subsequent programs, we put a whole code or several lines of code within an if statement. Do you understand? But for now, let's just keep it simple by just making it all on a single line, right? And then make sure we don't commit any errors, right? Since that would, okay, so this is fine, right? So now we can see the if coming. Let me put this onto on the same line as that. Okay, interesting. So you can also put the else to on the same line, but make sure that it's in a curly braces. If it's in a curly braces, you don't have a problem, right? But if it's not in a curly braces, that is when you have a problem. So we have the if, we have the else if, and then the another else, right? So let's see what this program will do. Should we run it? Okay, so let's recompile it and then run this. So now I enter the mark 55 and then it tells me good score. Interesting. I rerun and I enter probably 60.2, right? And then it tells me very good score. Interesting. Then what if we put in 30, right? Or let's say 40. 40, what happens? 40.4, what happens? Not excellent score still prints out, which means that our app has not adjusted or can't identify between that, right? So basically, we could add a lot of else if statements if you have other commands, right? Other conditions that you want to satisfy. Else, you could just make the rest fall under the else statement, right? So basically that's that. So I'll add another one here for, let's say, between 40 and 50, and that will be pass, right? Okay. So else if your mark is between 40, no, not between, your mark is, so obviously this is going to regard it as that 40 and 50. So that will be 40, greater than or equal to 40, right? But then bear in mind that this is working well because what? We are considering it to first check whether it's greater than or equal to 70 first, right? If it fails, if this is false, then it runs the else if here, checks, okay, it's not greater than or equal to 70, then is it greater than or equal to 60? What if it fails? Then is it greater than or equal to 50? Like that, right? So that's how come this app is working, or this program is working well. So let's see, print f what? Print f, and then good score. No, we want what? This should be pass, right? So pass, and then print f. So, and then if the student gets any mark lower than 40, let's print what? Fail, right? Or can do better. So fail, can do better, right? Can do better, right? Interesting. So okay, this is fine. Or let's not, fail is quite harsh. We don't want to hurt his feelings. We should just print can do better. His or her feelings, actually. So let's rerun and see what happens. If we do this, right? Recompile. Oh, oops. It's an error. Okay, yes, there's a part. This part said there's no semicolon here. Let me go back here, insert, and put my semicolon here. Interesting. So now I'll save and recompile it and see. So if I recompile now, we don't get any error. Let me first clear the screen, right? And then run the file or run the app or the program. So now when I input 45, I get pass, right? And I rerun and I input 30. What happens? Oops. Can do better, right? Interesting. Now the program works well, right? As we want. So we now know how to give conditions, right? Set certain conditions. If some logical operator here is true, then we do what? We execute the command or the statements in the curly braces, right? Else, if another command here or another condition here is true, you should execute this statement. Else, if another command here is true, you should execute this statement. Is we can continue doing this until we exhaust all our options, and then finally decide to do what? Print can do better as the last option. So anything else that's not greater than or equal to 40 would be what? Regarded as can do better. Well, the interesting thing is that now we are only looking at all the numbers between 70. What if the person adds 200, right? We know that our marking system is up to 100, right? So wouldn't it be absurd if this app just takes any number at all but doesn't have a limit? Interesting. So we could also decide to ensure that the individual or the user inputs a number, or the comparison is between numbers between what? 17 and 100, right? So we can do that by adding the AND, right? The logical AND operator here. So AND what? The mark is what? Less than, right? Less than or equal to what? 100. So we don't want marks greater than 100. And then so this AND will make sure that this must be true, this must be true before the whole statement can be true, right? And once this whole statement is true, then excellent is printed. Is that not it? But first, before we save and compile this file, let's see. here when we run this and we enter 200, right? 200 is greater than 70, but then it still returns excellent. Is that not it? But then we don't want this because it's absurd for someone to have 200%. Interesting. So let's come back here and run and see what this does. So it's going to check that the mark should be greater than 70, all right? But then it should also be less than or maximum at most. It should be 100%. So let's save this and see whether it will check that for us. So I clear this, right? And then I recompile it and then I run it. So now let's insert the 200 and see. Now it only runs the very good score. It didn't run the excellence that it ran earlier, right? Which means that there's a problem with this one as well, right? Which means that the second line too is only considering numbers greater than or equal to 60. But then 70 is greater than or equal to 60. 200 is greater than or equal to 60. But we are only interested in numbers that are below 70 and then greater than or equal to 60, right? So it means that we can as well add the logical AND operator here, right? And then C. So and because if we say or, if the other statement is false, it will still return true. So we are using the AND, right? So and what? Mark should be what? Less than. Now we are using a strictly less than because what? We already said that if the mark is equal to 70, it should print excellent, right? So we are using strictly less than here, right? So that if should the person get 70, the mark or the person wouldn't be given the very good score, but then told that you had an excellent score. So basically that's that. So let's run this, right? And compile this and rerun it. So now let's insert 200. We see that now it has gone to good score, which means you have a problem with the down there. But then let's rerun this and then type, let's say 69.999, right? Now 69.999 is not 70, obviously. So the mark given us is still very good score. You understand? Exactly. But then if we should put 70 here, right? It tells us what? Excellent score. So now the program is working. It's ensuring that the number is between 100 and 70. Let's put 100 here and see. Right. So excellent score. Exactly. So it's ensuring that the numbers we are entering are between a certain range or is within a certain range, right? Range of values. So for this one, so let's do the same thing for the good one as well. So we want this to be between what? 60 and right? So it should be greater than 50 and what? Less than 60. So the mark should be what? Less than what? 60. So this basically is just a condition, but then we are also combining the logic and then comparing two numbers as well here. And then we also do the same change here as well. And what? Mark is what? Less than what? Should be less than 50. Then anything else that is printed, let's see what happens. Sorry, less than 50. Yeah, okay. So now let's save it and rerun this. Let me clear my terminal. Now if I have this, recompile it and then run it. So now let's enter 200 and see. Can do better. So now the last program is being recorded, right? Okay. The last program is being recorded. We could also use another condition to make sure that we only print the can do better for people who score below, right? Below 40, right? That the can do better should be printed too. But anything else above 100 would be an absurd grade, so we wouldn't print or return anything for it, right? So we can still just add another else if statement here, right? And call it else if, but then we have to give it a condition. Mark is less than what? 40, right? Then it should do what? should perform a certain task, print F what can do better, right? Can do better, or more room for improvement. Let's do more room for improvement. More room, right, for improvement. Hey, improvement, exactly. So let's see. Don't worry, more room for improvement. Hey, you have to terminate this line as well. And then here, so now else, any number that is being printed, right, we want to say that this is absurd, right? We want to let the person know that we are aware that this number is not regarded. So this is what absurd, right? So this is not normal, right? So it's not normal for anybody to get or out of the norm. Doesn't matter. Let's just run this and see. Okay, there's no error. So let's give it 200 and see. Now it tells us that this is not normal. Obviously, we can't have 200% or 200 over 100 as a mark, right? But then we can, if you put in 15, the person scores 15. Oh, more room for improvement. Okay. And then should the person insert, let's say 40, right? Pass. Okay. The person inserts, let's say 67.5 or 0.9. Very good score. And then the person says 85.5, right? Okay, 0.7. So excellent score. So basically that's how we go about the conditions, right? Actually, this is quite a very simple one and doesn't require a lot of calculations, but then this is the logic behind it. So you can just use the if you're checking for only one condition, right? And you want to perform a specific task, you put a condition inside the parentheses and then you put a task inside the curly braces. But if you have two tasks that you want to compare and the alternate is probably something else, then you can add the else for the alternate condition so that if the person passes or fails, so you put a task for the pass mark and then anything above that or below that should be fail, right? Or if you have multiple tasks that you want to check, right, then you can use the if. You can now include the else if. You can now include a lot of else ifs, right? Okay, so basically that's that for the conditionals. But before we leave, I would like to tell you that we could also have nested ifs, right? So you could have an if in an if. So to do the nested if, you could just decide to include the nested if inside the if, right? So what I'm saying is this. To do the nested if, we can come here, right? And say that, so it should print the excellent score all right? But then you should also check, right? So let's say we want to check if the person has, or the mark the person gets is, let's say, greater than 80, right? Or let's say 85. So let's say if, right, the mark the person gets, right, the mark is greater than 85, right, then we want the program to print that, we want the program to print F, right? Print what? Keep soaring higher, right? Or keep it up. Let's just do it. Keep it up, right? Keep it up. Exactly. Or I'm coming. Let me see. Yeah. And then some smiley. That. So basically we have the so when we run this, it first runs this and checks if the mark is between 100 and 70, right? But then after running this, it prints the excellent score, right? After printing the excellent score, it then checks if the mark you have is greater than 85. If it is greater than 85, it prints what? Keep it up, right? But then if it's not greater than 85, it prints nothing. Do you get it? From this code. So let's see whether this code will work well for us. So if I should save this and first clear my terminal, right? And then recompile this code. Oops. Oh, I didn't bring my semicolon here. Interesting. So I insert, put my semicolon at the end here. So all this is being checked at the pre-processing side. So if you compile your code during the pre-processing cycle, it checks for syntax and then other stuffs. So basically that's that. So you recompile this and then you have what? Now there's no error. So now let's execute this program and see. So conditionals, right? .x. And then now let's enter the mark. Let's say 90. So should the students have 90? Interesting. So now we see that it says excellent score, keep it up, right? But then what if we input the mark 50, let's say 80, right? 80. What happens is that we have the excellent score, but then we don't see the keep it up here. So you see, we could also decide to add lots of if statements in other if statements. Do you understand? So basically, we can also even include another else if here if you want to check a lot of things. But this is how we go about the conditionals, right? So yes, so from here you can decide to build on this and then maybe check if the mark is maybe less than, maybe between 80 and 85, and then give the person another motivation, or check if you can add a lot to this and then try to customize this on your own. But that will be all for this video. I hope you enjoyed and learned something from this, and then in the next video we would be looking at another activity that would combine the if statements and then the loops together. Thank you.